Hello, hello.
Here I am. Let me check to make sure the right audio is on.
Sure thing.
My Rode microphone, the right camera. Good. Okay. We are ready to go.
Ready to go. Thanks for waiting.
Yes, no problem.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. How's your day been?
It's been pretty good. Productive.
I'm glad to hear.
And you?
Pretty productive too. I had two podcast recordings, a meeting, some work I had to do on a presentation for a virtual speaking thing I'm doing for next week. So I think
Hmm.
pretty good. Not too
Yeah,
bad.
you had a lot.
And then I'm teaching high school students intro to business also, so I have another class tomorrow.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so good, so good. All right, let's get this party on the road. Awesome. Welcome back to another episode here on Hacks and Hobbies, and today I get to bring Captain Hoff over here on the podcast. Captain Hoff, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. It is fantastic to be here.
Dude, what's cool is that, so just a short intro. I mean, we'll have an intro, but I met or I found Captain Hoff through TikTok. I mean, he's been creating some really amazing content there, and it like is really intellectual stuff that he's putting, and it's condensed in the storyteller model. And I was like, wow, I need to talk to this person in a more depth, and got to speak with him earlier in a intro call, and then I just love all the things that you're doing.
Thank you. We are doing a lot here at Founder Space.
So, Captain Hoff, how about sharing with the audience how you got started, what is Founder States, and why you're called a captain? Because that was a cool conversation we had.
So, well, I'll start with Founder Space. So, we are an international startup accelerator and venture builder. So, we work with startups all over the world. We're based in Silicon Valley, but I'm constantly on a plane working with
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and we help them launch their companies and grow their companies and raise capital and figure out those hard problems that all
Mhm.
entrepreneurs face. I got the name Captain Hoff because essentially I am the captain of the team. And I believe entrepreneurship is a team sport. Like when
Mhm.
we choose companies, we choose it based on the team, not just on the CEO. Has to be a
Yeah.
great team because a great CEO without the team to back him or her up almost always fails.
Yeah.
Solopreneurs almost never make it. So it's a team
Mhm.
sport. I am the captain and coach for these entrepreneurs at Founder Space, and that's how I got my name. My background, you wanted to know where I came from. So
Mhm.
I have a strange background. So I dreamed as a child of becoming the next Spielberg, of making movies.
Oh,
And I
nice.
made over 50 films,
Oh
all the
my
way from
god.
grade school through
Mhm.
high school. I was very prolific. My parents, my father, when I wanted to go to film school, said, "Son, you'll never get a job in the film industry. You
Oh man.
you want a serious career? Study computers." And this was a while back, so he was prescient. He was an
Mhm.
MIT professor, and he understood that computers were going to change everything. So,
Yes.
out of respect for him, I went into electrical computer engineering, and I graduated with honors, but my
Nice.
heart wasn't in it. I just wasn't passionate about that. So for grad school, I went to film school. It was an
Mhm.
amazing experience. I went to USC, graduated USC, uh, went into Hollywood, worked my way up from the bottom all the way to a TV development executive.
Nice.
Then I jumped to Japan because I saw games were going to be big. And,
Yeah.
and at that time, the game company Sega had just surpassed Nintendo as the number one game company in the world. It was
Nice.
back when Sega and Nintendo were competing,
Yeah.
and PlayStation was just a blip on the radar. And I joined Sega. on their creative team, designing games. They wanted somebody from Hollywood to come in and write scripts and design games with them. So it was a really great experience. We even worked with Michael Jackson on a big project, and I got to meet him.
Oh my God.
That was a thrill. After that, I decided I have to have my own game company. And this is when I became an entrepreneur. I was like, I just
Mm,
can't work for somebody else's big company in Japan. It's a great experience, but
yeah.
I want my own company. So I moved back to my home, which is California, landed in San Francisco, launched my first company, Lava Mine, basically with my own money, bootstrapped it, launched a game of all names. It's called Gazillionaire, and it's all about it's a business simulation game about how you become a gazillionaire, which is what
Nice.
I teach entrepreneurs today. The
Mm,
game was a big hit, did incredibly well. In fact, it is still available on Steam and other game platforms. It's
no
still out
way.
there after all. It's a classic. And I launched a whole bunch of games. I did a whole bunch of startups in Silicon Valley. I raised venture capital, did all the stuff. And then I decided, oh, wouldn't it be great to help other entrepreneurs who are just
Mm.
beginning? And that's when I launched Founderspace.
Man, I totally love that origin story, especially because uh, now jumping in and teaching high school students the power of entrepreneurship and how 99.7% of businesses in the US are small businesses and the power of a team. I mean, this is so what's that word? Um there's a word for can't remember, but the word is a synergistic, or it's like fate, right? Having to
Mhm.
getting to talk to someone like yourself and then teaching entrepreneurship to a class of students. It's kind of like you can't make this stuff up.
And if you want even more serendipity here,
Serendipitous, that's right.
Gazillionaire is actually used in hundreds of high schools to teach business
Wow.
and
Okay.
entrepreneurship. I can give you a copy. You can use it in your class.
That would be super, super fun. Thank you so much, Steve. So
My pleasure.
so as you're going through this, you've launched Founder Space, you went through this entire journey of, okay, yes, Dad, I will go into computers, then going and fulfilling your own dreams of being into the film industry, get to this TV executive. And then you just kept seeing the trend, is what I'm seeing. It's like you're riding that wave of trend of computers to games to game consoles to now the
I
well, startup space.
that's exactly right. I could see that I was a gamer too. So not only did
Hmm.
I love film, but I was passionate about games. I grew up
Yeah.
with the Atari, playing all these
Hmm.
games. I made all these board games. So I wasn't just making movies, I was making board game after board game after board game.
Yeah.
So when I was in Hollywood, I was actually a little frustrated because I wanted to be a creative person. I wanted to
Mm,
create the content, but I actually got promoted into a role which is called development executive, which is a little creative, but
hmm.
really what your job is to pick the projects, our company. So I was working for this big Hollywood company and the company produced hundreds of, movies and TV shows
Hmm.
and things like that. And my job was to find the next great script.
Wow.
So I was all, but I wanted to create something. So when I got that chance, I actually met the founder of Sega. And most people
Nice.
don't know this, but
Mm.
he's an American. And uh, they think it's a Japanese company, but it
Sure.
stands for Service Games, Sega. And
Ah,
he was
nice.
in World War, he was on the base after World War II, and
Hmm.
he launched with pinball machines and all this stuff. So I went into him, and because I was a gamer, not just a film guy, I
Sure.
started telling him all my ideas for games because I created games too.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, a Hollywood guy that gets games, we want you in our headquarters." So that meeting changed my
Hmm.
life. And then I launched a startup because I wanted to make my own games. I didn't want to
Yeah.
just make games for a big company.
Sure.
And that began my career as an entrepreneur, like a true entrepreneur. I learned the hard way, like literally, like when we launched our first game, like we put all our money on the line, like to make this game Gazillionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, you don't know if it's going to go or not when you're an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. You have no idea. And this was the early days of the internet. Literally, the internet was not it existed, but
Just
nobody was using it
yeah, yeah.
except total geeks. And the way we got our game out is really interesting.
Mhm.
We uploaded it to BBS services,
Of
bulletin board
course.
systems. Yeah. And people started to download it. And
Yeah.
literally, the first sale we got was from none other than a guy called Lord Geck. Because if you want a
Lord.
geeky gamer name, it's Lord Geck.
That's that Lord
And he
Gag.
sent us, he actually, there was no e commerce. So he had
Yeah.
to literally send us cash in an envelope
Oh my God.
for to buy, and we had to mail him back a stack of floppy disks. Like
Yes.
that was e-commerce in the early days, before Amazon, before
Before
downloads,
all
before
that.
Steam.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was, and
That's
then we
so cool.
invited him over for dinner because he was in the Bay Area and we met
Yeah.
him. We thought it was
Like, come
he was our
on.
first sale.
Oh my
But
God.
after that, we got a lucky break, and the QA team, the quality assurance team that tests games at the
Mhm.
largest PC game publisher in the world, Microprose Spectrum Holobyte at the time, they got hooked on our game.
Of course.
And they came to us and said, we want to publish your game. And we were like, okay, like, this is like, manna from heaven. How did this happen? And so
No,
we cut a publishing deal with them and they took it worldwide. They took the game all over. And that kind of made our company and really got us started.
that's so beautiful to hear too, because just recently, probably a few months ago, Apple TV Plus launched this movie called Tetris, and the story behind Tetris and how it was developed by this programmer in Russia, and then the whole licensing deal. Like the whole story is around licensing the product out of one country to another country to have publishing rights and whatnot.
I have another serendipitous story. So I
Yes.
know Hank Rogers, the guy who brought Tetris to
No
the world.
way.
Like, yeah. So So I actually, when I one of my startups that I did was an interactive TV startup, and
Yeah.
I was in, Hollywood. I was back in Hollywood, but this time as the tech guy making
Yeah.
interactive TV. So this is
Nice.
later in my career, and uh, one of the guys I knew, he was working for Hank Rogers, and he was kind of in their game
In the
business
circle.
development area,
Yeah, yeah.
and he had left the company, and I approached him, and I was like, hey, could we get Tetris and make a TV show out of it? Because an interactive TV show, can we
Yeah.
get the rights to Tetris?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, let me ask Hank. And he went to Hank, and Hank gave us the rights to an interactive TV show.
Oh
So
my
we
God.
actually we actually planned out the whole show. We did everything. We went into Hollywood with this show that was going to be, with huge Tetris blocks falling on a
Coming down. Yeah,
digital
yeah.
screen and people competing. And we got meetings with like all these amazing people, like the showrunners for Survivor. This is when
Yeah, yeah.
Survivor just launched. It's still
Sure.
big out, but this is
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
just launched. It was huge. Like we got meetings at ABC, and we were
Mm,
pitching Tetris. Now, Hollywood, not everything gets made. So
of course, yeah.
we came so close to getting a green light on that show, but we didn't get a green light. And eventually the rights reverted back, to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
company.
It's
But
like, hey, you have
that
30
was
days
my
or mm,
that was my personal Tetris experience. We were the first ones to pitch a Tetris TV show. I don't think it's ever been made into a TV show, but
yeah.
if it did, I would be very happy to see how it turns out.
Oh my God, this is so cool. I mean, getting to talk to you who spoke with Hank Rogers and just 2 days ago watched this movie, and like, wow, this is kind of crazy. This is cool. Thank you, Steve. I mean,
Well,
if there's
I've done a lot of things in my life. I like to say I've had more careers than cats have had lives. So, you know, from my early days as an electrical computer engineer,
hmm
working for one of, GM, General
yeah,
Motors, all
yeah,
the way through to filmmaking, game making, you know, entrepreneur with tech company, venture capitalist, author. I just basically my advice to entrepreneurs is just go where the world takes you. Like
yes,
don't try to control it. Don't limit yourself. In fact,
yes,
just dive in and do it. That's
just
kind of
dive
my
in.
advice. And when you do that, kind of magic happens. Things that you never expected that make your life so much richer.
Man, that's the best advice that I can even talk about because tomorrow I'm going back, to teach class number two. It's going to be focusing on the entrepreneur mindset. Like how much of the mindset is involved in being an entrepreneur or launching a new company?
I think mindset, you have entrepreneurs, like to be a true entrepreneur, and this is my philosophy. To be a
Yes.
true entrepreneur, you have to be a little crazy. Like
Mhm.
if you are just like totally normal by the book person, you are not going to be a great entrepreneur because you're just going to do what everybody else does. And really great entrepreneurs are the ones who just go their own direction
Mhm.
and stumble. It's usually stumble that you don't know at the beginning. So the mindset can't be, I figured it out. This is why when I
Right.
talk to entrepreneurs, like I'm constantly screening entrepreneurs for
Mhm.
investment, for, to be admitted into founder space, our incubator. When
Sure.
I talk to entrepreneurs, I'm not looking for somebody who's done normal stuff in their life. I'm looking for somebody who's gone out on an edge, tried something really risky, tried
Yeah.
something, a little crazy. And it doesn't have to be about entrepreneurship. They could have been a mountain climber, like, and,
Mhm. Mhm.
challenge themselves to climb, a huge mountain. They could have
Yeah.
been an actor, right, and started a career. But I just want somebody who's willing to take those risks.
Mhm.
And like I say, you have to be a little unbalanced
Yeah.
because you have to believe in something usually that nobody else believes in. Because if they already believed in it, they would be doing it and
That
it
would
would
be
be
all.
done. Like, so you wouldn't be paving any new ground. You wouldn't be,
Mhm.
blazing trails. You would just be following the herd. And entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs cannot follow the herd. So you can get people on your team that follow
Yeah.
you. But if you're
Yes.
going to be the lead, the CEO, the quote unquote visionary, then you have to have a vision. And you have that. The challenge with entrepreneurs is you have to have this mindset that
Mm.
I can do anything. I can, and I'm willing to try anything and I will take the risk. At the same time, you have to be realistic
Yeah.
because you have to look at the real world and real data. So it's this dual mindset. It's not like one or the other. If you're
Right.
just crazy, you're just gonna, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are just crazy, but they cannot execute on anything or
Sure.
connect with the real world. They end up, spinning their wheels. Like they have
Mhm.
crazy ideas, but nothing ever happens. And then there's the other entrepreneurs who are too practical. You got to be in the middle. You got to have your crazy half of your brain
Yeah.
and your practical half of your brain.
Yeah.
And the combination of those, that is what makes great entrepreneurship.
Man, I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I mean, I keep trying to think of what questions would be the next one, but you've got such a rich experience and rich uh journey throughout your career. It's just been it's amazing. It's amazing. I
I can tell you another story. So,
yes, please.
but I will say that for anybody who really wants to be an entrepreneur out there, I have a book published by HarperCollins called Surviving a Startup. And it
Surviving a startup.
literally goes through all the basics, like everything you need to do to really be a good entrepreneur. And I recommend it. Of course, I'm the
Of
author.
course. Yeah.
But let me tell you a story of my first. I told you a story of when I launched my company Lava Mind and made
Right.
Gazillionaire and a bunch of other games.
Yeah.
Well, after I did Lava Mind, I actually, the internet had come full force. The
Yeah.
Mosaic browser was launched and Netscape was launched, and it was like a really exciting time. And I was like, we can't just keep making games. We have to do this internet thing, right? And I wanted to do it in entertainment and technology because that was my alley. That was what I was passionate about. So I got together with my friend, and she was my friend from film school,
Yeah.
another film school grad, and she had gone to New York and was working for this big ad agency, and they had just developed a massively multi-user online game for Microsoft, one of the very first ones. And it was a
Hmm.
casual like game show thing where it was called NetWits, and it was all about it was basically funded by Expedia that Microsoft owned.
Yeah.
And this they had finished that project, but the engineer had the code for it. He was the genius behind creating this massively multi-user gaming software in
Yeah.
the early days when nobody was, very few people were massively multiplayer gaming. There's one game called EverQuest, and that was it. So we said, what if we took this technology
Hmm.
and actually applied it to television? TV broadcasting. There's my
There it
passion.
is. Yeah.
Could we create interactive television where people could play along on their computers and watch TV at the same time in perfect synchronization. Could we do that? We didn't know it was possible, but
Mm-hmm.
what we did was we knew we had this base technology and we had kind of the DNA to do television and gaming. So
Yeah.
the first thing we did is we started to call MTV because we heard that MTV was going to produce an interactive TV game show with Amit Zappa, Frank Zappa's son,
Yeah.
and it was called Web Riot. And they were looking for a technology partner. So we called them up and left message after message after message. And guess what happened?
They picked up.
We were calling the direct line of the
Yeah.
senior vice president of Interactive. They never called us back.
They never called back.
Never.
Oh man.
Never. So my friend, she actually, because of her previous job, got invited to speak at CES. So
Mm.
she went to CES, and like all great entrepreneurs, she started talking about our vision for what we were building, even though we hadn't built it yet. Like we
Yeah.
just had to, we
Yeah.
just begun, right?
You
We
put
hadn't
it
built
out. Yeah.
anything really. And she started talking about how we are going to do interactive TV and blah, 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 blah. And after her talk, this guy comes running up from the audience, pushes through everybody, and literally goes up to her and says, I am the senior vice president of MTV, and you have exactly what we need.
No.
And she looked at him and
Mhm.
she goes, I know. I've been leaving messages on your voicemail. So we
That's so cool.
we literally closed a deal a few weeks later with
Mhm.
MTV for, hundreds of thousands of dollars, which to us seemed like, heaven
Yeah.
in
It's
those
yeah.
days, like a
Yeah.
huge amount of money. And uh, the only catch was we had to deliver. This was at the beginning of the year. We had to deliver uh, within 9 months the
Mhm.
complete system.
Oh wow.
We had to literally build it out and deliver it, and it had to work because this was television.
Yeah.
MTV in these days, now media TV companies and film companies, they'll work with internet, no problem. But in
Mhm.
these days, they were very scared because
Yeah.
who were we? We were nobody, right? The
Yes.
internet was just beginning. And if they were going to put this on air, it had to work or their reputation would be tarnished.
Yeah.
So we're under intense pressure. And we literally spent day and night building out this platform and building the content. So we're building
Wow.
this interactive TV game show where you could play along on your computer. It never been
Mhm.
done, and actually, it would you would play along in perfect frame accurate synchronization with the TV broadcast, and then it would take the winners of the show and actually broadcast them live
Oh
onto
wow.
TV. And so it was a lot of new things that we had never
Okay.
had never
Yeah, you
experienced.
live
We didn't even
streaming
know if
is
it
mhm.
yeah, we didn't even know if it was possible to keep it in frame accurate sync or if we could handle the amount of traffic that MTV and Viacom were about to throw at us.
Yeah.
And as we get closer to the launch date, we have two major problems, like really serious problems. Number one, we are running out of money. What seemed like a lot of money was no longer a
Yeah.
lot of money. So we
Mhm.
were running around talking to venture capitalists saying, please, please, we got this deal with MTV, fund
Mhm.
us. We found the perfect company, the perfect VC, venture capital, and they were in Los Angeles. It was run by a big Hollywood guy, and it had
Mhm.
all these famous people like Michael Milken and the founder of all these tech
Yeah.
companies and media companies on their board, and we pitched them, and they said absolutely we will fund this. And they said $5 million, no problem.
Mhm.
So they started. So we were like super excited. So we're like negotiating the deal. We're spending a lot of money on lawyers. Like we racked up a bill of $60,000 on legal fees,
Oh.
which is crazy. But we're going to close this deal, and we're getting close to launch. And right before launch, we're about to close the deal. And
Mhm.
you know what they said? You know what the venture firm said?
What did it say?
They said, we don't want to fund you now. We want to wait until after you launch. And if it's successful, then we'll give you the money. And we're like,
What?
but you told us you'd give us the money now. We worked out the whole deal. And they go, well, we want to wait. So we had no choice, right? So we said,
Mhm.
okay, like what we didn't know what to say. This is our first
Yeah.
startup. We had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So we said, okay. And then we just focused on
Just
finishing
continue to build.
the
Yeah.
launch of WebRiot. And MTV was getting more and more nervous because they had literally spent huge amounts of money advertising, day and night on MTV. The show Web Riot is coming, Web Riot is coming, Web Riot is coming, to get, make a huge hype out of this, that they
Yeah.
were the first one to launch this type of show in America. And we get right up to the launch date, everything's set. And it's not like today. There were no cloud systems. We
Right.
couldn't put it on Amazon. We couldn't do, there's no scalability. We had to get
Yeah.
our own, space racks in a data center, stack up our computers. People don't
Oh,
even realize today how hard this is.
how
And we had
hard.
no
Yeah.
way of testing, load balance testing, because you can't really test. We just had no way of simulating what it would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
like to get hundreds of thousands of users at
Oh my
once.
god.
So we launch and we are counting down. It's like 10 minutes before launch. And users are starting to flood in because they've done all this pre-promotion. Users after users. We see the numbers going up and up and up and up and up. And we're like, oh my God. And you know what happens?
I
The
don't know that.
whole system crashes.
No.
Crashing down. I practically had a heart attack.
Oh,
And I'm on the West Coast. MTV is on the East Coast. And one of our engineering team is in New Jersey, and my partner is in LA. We're a distributed team. We don't even have an office because we don't have money for an office. And the senior vice president of MTV calls, and I pick up the phone, and you don't know the swear words that I heard on that phone. It's like blah 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 blah. What the blah is going on? You told you this is television. It's not the internet. It cannot crash.
Mhm.
The show won't work without this. And go, well, hold on. Let me talk to my engineering team. I finally got him off the phone, called the engineering team. I was like, it's down. And they go, we know. And I
We're
go,
right
what's
here.
wrong? And they go, it's not our fault. We are being hacked. It's a denial of service attack.
Oh
And
my
this was
god.
the early days again. You didn't have
Yeah.
the big firewalls they have today and all the
Yeah, yeah,
protection.
yeah.
So some hackers had gotten in and they were literally bringing down our service. And our team was manually, our team of 3 engineers, like not a big team, just 3 people, was manually blocking IP addresses, trying to stop them from keeping us from running. And the seconds are counting down till the show goes live. And then by a miracle, boom, we're back on. We're back on. All
Oh
the
my
users can
god.
get back into the
Oh
system.
my god.
They blocked the hackers. The show ran. And guess what? It ran perfectly. Once we blocked the hackers, no problem. And it just ran frame accurate. Everybody played along back into the broadcast. So it was a huge hit. In fact, we ended up getting over 1 million users after we launched. So
Wow.
nobody in those days, 1 million is a lot today, right? For a launch. But in those days, it was kind of unheard of. Like you only got that
Mhm.
if you went to television.
Yeah.
And so it was great, except we now had $0 in the bank, like no money, not a penny in the bank. So we went back to the venture capitalists and said, look, we launched, it ran perfectly. You can fund us now. In fact, we've run multiple shows,
Mhm.
it's proven.
Yeah.
And they looked at us and this is venture capital. You know what they call them in Silicon Valley? They call
What
them vulture capital.
vultures
And they call
because
vulture
VC.
capital, they call them for a reason. Because when they see somebody dying, they'll go after the
Uh-huh.
carrion. So they turned to us and they said, oh, we'll give you the $5 million, but we want you at half the valuation.
Of
We want to
course.
cut your valuation in half, 50% down. We just did a successful launch. Met all their criteria. We had the terms, everything was done, not just the term sheet, the contract.
Mhm.
We were furious. Like, but what choice did we have? Like we had no money. And we had these huge server bills that we're paying. We had committed to MTV to run the show and we
Yeah.
literally didn't have the money to run it. Um, so we had the choice of either saying, screw you, like we are not going to, we don't want you in our company, we're
Sure.
walking, or just taking their money and biting the
Mhm.
bullet. And guess what we did?
You walked away. Like, "We're not taking your
We
money."
did.
You
We
did?
walked away. We said,
Okay.
"We don't want to be in business with people who are going to do this to us.
Mhm.
It's bad karma. It's not going to be a good relationship."
Yeah.
And we walked. And you know what? It felt great. It felt
Mhm.
great right up until the point we were out the door.
Yeah.
And then we realized we had no money.
What did it
And then all the stress happened. Oh, it felt great to tell them to, screw off. But now we have no money.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? And worse, it was like it was literally right before Thanksgiving. And all the VCs shut down between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Wow.
They just disappear
Just f
until CES of the next year, or until like mid-January.
wow.
They come back. So we are like, "Oh my god, everybody's going." And we couldn't get a hold of any other venture capitalists. We didn't have any lined up.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson for every entrepreneur out there. You know, first of all, if somebody says changes their terms and tells you to wait, you tell them forget it right then.
Right
You
right
don't
away.
wait
Like, "Nope,
when they
we don't
say
wait."
if
Mhm.
they're not going to invest now, you walk away. And then um, you have to be you have to have other investors lined up. You can't count on just one like we did. We just counted on this one investor. Huge rookie mistake. You
Mhm.
have to have other people lined up. So it was between the holidays. I managed by some miracle to get through to a company called Macromedia, and they are now Adobe. So I'll just call them Adobe from now on.
Sure.
So I got through to the president of Adobe, and I literally got invited into his office, and he said, what you're doing is pretty cool. We have this new technology called Flash, which was, a lot of people know about that.
Mhm.
And if you convert to Flash, we would be interested in funding your company. Can you do it? I didn't know if we could convert to Flash, but you know
Mhm.
what I said? Absolutely, we can
Absolutely.
convert to Flash. Because what we had no company if we didn't do it. We will convert. Hand us the money. And he goes, well, we can't lead the investment round. You need to get another VC,
Of course.
one of the established VCs to lead the round, and we'll follow. And he goes, but I can introduce you to some VCs next year, you know,
Mhm.
after the new year.
I've
And
heard that
so
story before.
you've heard it before.
Right.
Very painful. But we had no choice. So we waited. We went to CES, but this CES was very different than the last one we'd gone to a year ago, because now we are on literally the edge of dying. Like, we had our hosting provider, we had to beg them to keep the servers running. Our
Mhm.
employees, we had to say, please, please work. We can't pay you, but we will be able to pay you. We hope we'll be able to pay you. Um, so we were just on a thread. And time is ticking. We go to CES, we get the cheapest, scummiest hotel room that what we could afford. But we were so depressed, we could
Mhm.
hardly get out of bed, like, and attend the show. It was like
Sure.
we were just like, oh, we're dying. We get back to Silicon Valley, and now it's like almost February, like, because that's when everybody starts to filter back, and you can actually
Mhm.
set up a meeting and get into their offices. So the Macro Media Adobe guys fulfilled their promise. They walk us into a top tier VC on Sand Hill Road, which is the place where all the VCs have their
Mhm.
offices, the street. And he comes along with us. And I'm like, why is the president of Adobe coming along to hear us pitch a venture capitalist?
Sure.
And then I realized he's here for one reason. And that reason is, he wants to see what the venture capitalist says, because if venture capitalist pokes holes in our business, he's
Mhm.
not going to make any more introductions. This is
Right.
his last introduction for us. And so we better do well, because this is the test. That's why he's sitting here. He's not here
Mhm.
for the fun of it. So he's sitting there, the venture capitalist comes in, we give our pitch, and I learned you do not show weakness. I did not tell him that we were totally out of money and,
Right.
and on borrowed time.
Yeah.
I did not, I know we're dead then.
Yeah.
I just said we have this deal with MTV. It got over 1 million users. It's going great. This is a huge opportunity. Gave the whole pitch. And at the end of the pitch, I look into his eyes. And you know what I saw?
What'd you
I
see?
saw nothing, totally blank. I
Oh,
was
I
totally blank,
oh, wow.
stone faced, totally blank. And then he says, excuse me, I have to get up and do something. I'll be back in a few minutes. And he gets up and walks out of the room. And I look over at the president of Adobe, and I'm like, "What's going on here?
Mhm.
What are we? What's?" And he doesn't know, right?
Yeah, he has no
Because
idea.
guy gave no reaction to the pitch. So we're sitting there. I'm sweating bullets. He comes back in the room. He sits down and he pushes a piece of paper towards me and says, "Here's your term sheet." He went to prepare the term sheet
Oh, wow.
right there after the
Right
pitch.
then.
And he said, "I'm not going to give you $5 million. I want to give you $7 million."
Wow.
And we were like, I was like, "Whoa, I'll take seven."
Mhm.
You don't have to twist my arm. And he's
Sure.
going to do it at the same valuation, which gives him a little better deal to give more money at the same valuation. But
Yeah.
who cares, right? I
Right.
want the money more than the valuation at this point. And it was the same valuation we got rejected on before, the high
Sure.
valuation they wouldn't go for. So he gives this to me. And now my brain starts working, my poker player brain. And I'm like, you don't need the money. What you need is the money right now. Like you need the money this minute. Like you can't even wait you can't wait 3 months for the deal to close or even, a month. You don't
Mhm.
have that time. So I looked at him and I said, we'll take 7 million. No, no, I didn't say that. What I screwed up. I said, "We don't want 7 million. We only asked for 5 million. But I'll tell you what, we will split the difference. We will take 6 million if you agree to get that money in our bank account in 2 weeks. All the legal contracts done, everything and the money in our bank in 2 weeks." He looked at me. He said, "Deal." We I shook, and literally 2 weeks later, that money was in our bank account, and we
Oh,
were
wow.
off to the races. So this is being an entrepreneur. Like it's near death
It's
experiences,
near
it's
that, yeah.
crazy stuff. You learn as you go, you figure it out. Um, and you learn through doing. Like I learned how to deal with the investors. And, I thought back on my meeting. I was like, why did he go get that term sheet?
Mhm.
Why did he walk out of the room and get that term sheet? And I said, what did I say that made him feel like he couldn't let me leave his office? Because
Yeah.
that's what you want when you're closing a deal. Doesn't matter if it's venture capital or a big sales deal, right? You want
Mhm.
the deal, you want to make them give you sign the deal there, which is
Right.
almost impossible. Like, you rarely get
Yeah.
that, especially when you're an unknown startup. So I thought back and I said one thing to him that was critical. During my pitch, I said, you're the first investor that Adobe has introduced us to. They're going to introduce us to other investors. Boom.
Boom.
So
That's it.
that single thing planted the seed in his mind. If I let these guys leave, they're going to get another deal.
Yeah.
And this is why I tell entrepreneurs, and I write about it in my books. If you're going to close any deal, you have to balance fear and greed. Like you have to make them more afraid of losing the deal than they are afraid of losing their money.
Oh.
They have to be greedy, right? So they have to want to close that deal and not
Mm.
let you leave the room. So saying that one thing, I was like, okay, that's how you close these big deals. I hadn't been able to do it up to this point, but that's what I should have done with the previous venture
Sure.
capitalists. Like if you want them to close.
It's almost like you're creating FOMO for them, the fear of missing out. Like,
Well,
if we don't do
absolutely. You
this,
have
right, you create that.
somebody else is
Holy
gonna
smokes.
do it, and you're gonna
Yeah.
miss out.
Oh my
Exactly.
god.
That's
Oh my
it's
god.
psychology. So you think these are all numbers because these VCs are really smart. They know all the numbers. But at the end of the day, all business plans begin to look the same. Like, and they know that as soon as you leave, there's 10 other entrepreneurs waiting to walk in their office, right? And pitch them
Exactly.
for money.
Yeah.
If they can wait, they'll wait because wait gives them visibility. Like the other VC firm, they're like, push, let's wait a
Yeah.
month. Let's see. We know they don't have anybody else on the line.
Right.
Let's see how they perform. It lowers our risk and gives us more leverage.
Yeah.
Same thing. So you have to understand they can wait if you let them wait, and they will wait.
Because they don't have a rush into spending their money. They're like, "Oh, that's cool. We'll just keep more longer our money or
There's
whatever."
always more
Just
entrepreneurs who need
yeah.
money. Like there's,
Exactly.
and if they don't feel like it's urgent or you're the one that they have to feel like they have to get it to this deal.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
competitive. So if you press those right buttons, you get their competitive juices flowing and they will cough up the money.
Wow, I love that. I have one question, and then before after that, we're gonna take a quick break, and then go into the 3 hacks to share for the audience. What qualities do you look for when choosing a team or a co-founder?
Biggest qualities I look for are I want them to be conscientious, meaning when they say they'll do something, they do it, right?
Mm,
There's no point in working with people who promise stuff and don't deliver. So they have to have a history of doing this. Number two, I want people who are creative because I'm in a knowledge industry, right? I'm in creating intellectual property, venture capital, this high growth, innovative industry. So I want people who ask a lot of questions, not just
mhm.
of me, but of themselves, of our
Yeah.
business. I don't want people to accept our business the way it is. I want them constantly questioning our business. And honestly, I want them smart. I want highly intelligent. I don't care what university you went to. I'm not
Mhm.
big on names. I can tell how smart you are after I talk to you
Mm.
for 10 minutes. Like, and so I don't care if you didn't even go to college. If you have that brain that is super smart, that can
Yeah.
figure out really hard problems, then I want you on my team. Those are the three biggest things I look for. There's a lot of other things. Are they compatible? Can they communicate? But some,
Sure.
great people can't communicate as well. They have to communicate at a base level, but I don't
Mhm.
expect them to be, super articulate. If you're an
Sure.
engineer and you can communicate through code, do it, right? But, I look for people who are self-starters too. If early stage, right? I want like if I'm talking to an engineer, I want an engineer who's at home on their
Mhm.
free time, not work time, hacking, like figuring out stuff, rewiring stuff,
Yeah.
writing code.
Yeah.
When I find those engineers who are like, downloading the latest SDK and just playing with it, why?
Yeah.
Because it's fun. That's
Mhm.
the engineer I want. The marketing person, I want the marketing person who's reading all the latest books, thinking of new ideas, always experimenting in marketing. Doing a startup is about experimentation. It's about
Yes.
experimentation. You want people who are natural experimenters.
I love that. Thank you so much for that answer. It really helps people listening to see, okay, where is your mindset at? How should you be presenting yourself, or how should you have that heart of working, being really into what you're passionate about.
Yeah. And I have another book, Make Elephants Fly, and it's all about this process of experimentation. It's
I
like,
love that.
how do you experiment? Like, how do you innovate within your company from the very earliest days? And it's hard because a lot of companies, they just latch onto an idea and stick with it. They
Mm.
almost always fail. Like, it's almost never your first idea that is successful.
It's almost like, how do you pivot successfully from one idea to another idea? And I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and he's like, "Hey, initially we went with this market, but then that didn't work. So now we're going after this new market that's totally in line with what the product's able to do, and it's working with the people who are looking for this kind of solution, but they don't have the tech know-how to be able to do those kind of things."
And I skipped over because the story would have been too long, the part of my story, with the interactive TV company where we
Mm.
tried 2 other things first, and then
Mm.
they didn't work, you know? And, because, every company goes through this.
No, 100%. We will definitely have to bring you back, Steven, for another episode so we can go deeper into those books and talk about the startup journey, how to make elephant flies and whatnot. So let's take a quick break and then we will be right back. Welcome back, guys. We've been talking with Captain Hoff here, Stephen Hoffman. Really amazing human being. We were in the green room talking about how we literally gone through the same era, but in different, places in the world. So it's really awesome to find somebody who's gone through the same journey. And as you were talking about being in Hollywood, I experimented with Hollywood through backstage.com, and I did some screen work, but then I was also really passionate about doing films and doing documentaries. So I had a little bit of experience, not at the level that you got to. So it's really awesome to hear all of that.
Thank you.
So yeah. So Steve, go ahead and share the 3 hacks that entrepreneurs today can use in their startups, in their business. And I know you've got $3, but 3 hacks that they can use immediately in their business.
So, the first hack I wanna give your audience is ask, don't tell. So,
Mm,
when you go to your employees, instead of telling them what to do each day, "You do this, you do that, don't do that," ask them, "What do you think you should be doing?
mm,
How do you think you should do it? What's the best way to do it? Do you have any other ideas?" As soon as you ask somebody, you make them way more innovative. You turn on their brain,
Mm,
like instead of them waiting for you to tell them, you're asking them. That's hack number one. Hack number two, when you are stressed out, which happens a lot to entrepreneurs, uh, what I recommend is that you look back into your past and try to remember what you were stressed out a year ago that day.
mm,
A year ago that day, can you remember what stressed you out? Probably something did. Or even that week, or even that whole month. Can you remember
mhm,
anything that stressed you out? I almost guarantee you were stressed out,
mhm,
but you won't remember. And so
mm.
say, will I even remember this a year from now? And 2 years, 3 years? No, like you
Mm,
don't remember all those. It has to be pretty catastrophic for you to even come to your mind. So don't
sure.
be stressed out now because you won't even remember it. Hack
I love
number
that.
three. Hack number three is you, when managing teams, when you are managing your teams, you need to look to people's strengths. Like, do not have, do not put somebody in a role that they are not excellent at.
Mm,
Honestly, like you have to understand what each person on your team is excellent at and move them in that direction. It might not be what they think they are good at. A lot of
yeah.
people think they're good at one thing, but they're actually really good at another thing. And this is, you need to move them around. And literally, if there is not a role in your company, a startup is too small, right, to have dead weight. If there's
Mhm,
not a role in your company where they can perform at an excellent level, you have to let them go because you you can only have a few employees. And if
yeah.
you're going to build an excellent product or service, everybody needs to be doing an excellent job. And if they aren't
100%.
what they're excellent at, you will build a mediocre product or service, or
Yeah.
even a good product. But good products don't sell, only excellence does. Being a startup, super competitive.
Man, I love those hacks because they're immediately usable and worrying about stress because you're not gonna remember it. And that's so true because our brains are designed to eliminate those stressful thoughts because it's not helpful for your survival.
Right. And we only remember like catastrophic things, things that
Hmm.
we're not all the little stresses during the day,
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't get all stressed about the little things because you won't care at all. They
Yep.
won't make any difference in your life.
I love it. Thank you so much, Steve. How about let's jump into the rapid fire questions. Number one, what is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
Music. I wish I played a
Mm,
musical instrument. I don't, and I have always wished I did that. And now, I'm so busy doing all this other creative stuff
sure.
that I never was able to, well, I never committed the time to do it.
Yeah. One thing that I picked up was we were at this event and there was a piano in this room. And as I'm waiting for people to come by, I was like, hey, I wonder if I can play this piano. And pressing the
Mhm.
buttons here and there. But then I found this app, Simply Play Piano or something. And it basically teaches you. I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Ah,
It's
nice.
so nice. Like the app totally could listen to the piano sound and like, oh, you're pressing the wrong button. Okay, now press this
And
key.
guide you
Now
through the
it
wow,
guided me through the thing. So I
modern
was like, okay,
technology.
I need to buy
That's
me a
what I need.
piano. Yes. I'll send you the link.
You send me the link.
Yes. Next up, what did you want to be when you were a child?
Well, I told you a little of this, but
Mm-hmm.
well, first I wanted to be an architect because I was doing a lot with blocks, and my parents
Mm.
complimented me, on building blocks. So I thought, oh, I could be an architect. Then my mom's an artist. I wanted to be an artist.
Mm.
Then I wanted to be a game maker. Then I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And then I became what I am. And I'm not
Yes.
quite sure what that is.
I love that. Thank you. That's a very good question. I mean, very good answer. Thank you. Next up, what is your favorite movie or TV show?
My favorite movie or TV show. Uh yeah, so I have, you know, I'm going to answer this in a strange way. Um,
Okay.
I've stopped watching a lot of TV or
Mm.
Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a lot of Netflix, but
Yes.
I'm really into podcasts and audiobooks. Um, and, and, that consumes a lot of my time. So I'm going to tell you that what, a book I just read. which is fascinating,
Mhm.
and that is called uh, "The End of the World is Just the Beginning," which is
Wow.
about our global, the world's global economy
Mhm.
collapsing. So it's kind of
Mm.
scary. Now, I
Yes.
don't believe everything in the book, but it's a
Sure.
fascinating read. And then I'm also listening to another podcast about business called Business Wars, which is
Mm.
really fun. So
I love it.
that's
Those
those are
those
my recommendations.
those are really cool. I'll definitely check out the global collapse because
And of course, this podcast, but I
of
don't have to
course.
recommend it to your audience because they are here. And you could listen to my podcast at Founders Space. So we have
There
our
we go.
Founders Space podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the plug. Um, the next question is really interesting because it's based off the previous question. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
Ah, oh, movie. Maybe The Shining. I would want to reinvent Jack Nicholson's character. I love The Shining.
Nice, I like it. Next up, who is your favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? Well, for me, being Captain Hoff, it has to be Captain America
Yeah,
because we share a lot in common.
share like but I think you share a lot in common with Iron Man too, because he is an inventor and he's creating all of these things. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe he's more Elon Musk.
Yeah, maybe he's more Elon Musk. All right, last question. If you are a board game, what would it be?
Ah, I would be Risk. That is my favorite board game, and that is the one I created probably 200 variations on Risk, and I'm not
Wow.
joking. Like, well, I
Wow.
just changed the rules, tweaking the rules,
Yes.
like in all the, we'd have nuclear Risk, we would have, medieval Risk with castles and peasant revolts, and
Oh
it went on
man.
and on.
That is so cool. We'll have to definitely look those up. Man, this was a lot of fun. Thank you again so much for coming on and having a conversation here on the podcast. Appreciate all the wisdom, the knowledge, and the stories that you shared with us. I am
My pleasure.
totally going to be talking about this for a very long time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Until the next episode, we'll catch you later.